There was a moment a while back when someone asked me how I was, and I said, fine. Tired, but fine. And they moved on, and I moved on. But I remember sitting with that word afterwards. Tired. Because the thing is, I wasn't physically tired. I'd slept well. I wasn't feeling unwell. I didn't have somewhere to be. But I was tired in a way that rest doesn't quite fix. And I think a lot of people in this phase of life know exactly what I mean. It's not the tiredness that comes from a bad night, and it's not the tiredness that comes from, going out and, doing a 5-mile run. But it's the tiredness that comes from decades of adapting, of managing, of holding things together, of being the person who copes. And somewhere along the way, coping quietly became, just another thing we were expected to do. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently, because I don't think this exhaustion is weakness. I think it's a signal. And today I want to talk about what it might be trying to tell us. Gen X has lived through enormous change. We grew up in one world and ended up living in another. Technology changed, work changed, family life changed, the economy changed, the expectations changed. And throughout it all, we adapted again and again and again. And while resilience is something to be proud of, it can also be exhausting, because resilience often means carrying on, even when you're tired. For many Gen Xers, adulthood became one long period of responsibility. Building careers, paying mortgages, raising children, supporting parents, managing finances, solving problems, being dependable. And I think many of us became so used to carrying responsibility that we stopped noticing how heavy it was. Until recently, until life slowed down enough for us to feel it. One thing I've realised is that coping and thriving are not the same thing. Gen X became very good at coping. We learned how to function under pressure, how to keep going, how to push through. But none of us stopped to ask whether we were actually thriving, whether we were enjoying life, whether we were emotionally fulfilled. Because survival often took priority, and when survival mode lasts long enough, it becomes normal. And I think this is why so many people in midlife are reassessing everything, not because they're ungrateful, not because they fail, but because they're tired. Not physically, emotionally. They're asking, what do I want now? What matters now? What am I carrying that I no longer need to carry? And those questions are powerful because they mark the beginning of change. I don't think Gen X are broken. I think Gen X is tired. Tired from adapting, tired from carrying responsibility, tired from being strong all the time. And perhaps the next chapter isn't about proving ourselves anymore. Maybe it's about recovering parts of ourselves that we lost along the way. What do you think? Do you think Gen X is emotionally tired? And what do you think caused it? If you recognised that particular kind of tired that I've talked about in this video, You don't need to explain it in the comments, just know that you're not the only one that feels it. And if you'd like to spend more time with these questions, I've created a free midlife redesign reflection guide, which you might find useful. I've linked it below. Thank you for watching. There's more of this reflective journey to come. I'm Angela, and if this conversation is helping, subscribing is the simplest way to make sure you don't miss the next one. I hope to see you there.